The year is 1985. Take On Me is on the radio, Back to the Future is in the movie theaters. But what's on TV? That's right, the Thundercats, the evil fighting felines of justice. Back then, they were a staple of every kid's Saturday morning around the world. And although they're nearly 40 years old, there's a real strong cult following for the Thundercats. So in today's video, we're going old school and going through the entire series from start to finish. But before we dive in, let me just lay down some context for you. The Thundercats are a group of cat-like humanoid aliens turned superheroes from a long-distance planet called Thundera. The members of the team are Lion-O, the young lord of Thundera, and the leader of the cats, Panthro, Yaga, Tygra, and Cheetara. Along with the Thundercats, we have the Thunder Kittens, Willy Cat and Willy Kit, and the team's loyal sidekick, Snarf. Together, this team tackles evil across the cosmos and takes refuge on a planet called Third Earth where their mortal enemy, Mumm-Ra, lives. But more on him later. I think that just about covers the basics, so let's get into it. Thundercats Ho! The first episode of the series, Exodus, begins inside the Thunderian flagship, the supermassive royal ship and new home of the Thundercats. Cheetara brings a young Lion-O to the control room, and right on cue, they all see Thundera, their home planet, and it explodes right before their eyes. The cats can't believe that their home is gone, but know they must keep the code of Thundera alive by saving the universe. Well, at least the code is something small, no biggie. Yaga, or Yaga the Wise to you and me, takes his Lord Lion-O to the sword chamber, where the sword of Omens is kept. He explains that the sword holds the Eye of Thundera, the source of their power. Yaga then calls the other Thundercats to the chamber and gives them protective clothing and weapons. But out of nowhere, mutants attack the Thundercat ship. Get used to the mutants, they're going to be a constant thorn in the cat's side. They board where battle breaks out. Slythe and Jackalman, two of the monstrous mutants, find the sword chamber where Lion-O and Snarf are. So to give a bit of quick background on Snarf, he's not really a Thundercat, he's more like their maid, nurse, mascot thing. Mascot, we're going to go with mascot. But basically, his main job is to look after Lion-O.
Get me out of here!
Anyway, back to the episode. The mutants laugh at Lion-O as he struggles to lift the sword, but they're shocked when he finally does raise it, unleashing a mighty roar that sends the mutants packing. Panthro explains that the flagship is too damaged to reach their original destination. He suggests they head to Third Earth. Yeah, Third Earth. I wonder what happened to Earth 1 and 2. The cats realize that this Earth has a breathable atmosphere, similar to Thundera. Even though it's closer, it's still light years away. So Yaga tells the Thundercats to enter the suspension capsules while he pilots the ship. The Thundercats want Yaga to enter a capsule too, but he refuses. He says it's too risky to leave the ship on autopilot, and even with the capsule slowly aging, he wouldn't survive the trip. The Thundercats say a tearful goodbye to Yaga and enter the capsules. Yaga pilots the ship for years until he can't continue anymore. He sets the ship on autopilot and he sacrifices himself. The flagship then crashes on Third Earth, where Lion-O and Snarf's capsules are thrown out along with the Sword of Omens. Snarf wakes up first, and then he wakes Lion-O, who has gone from a young lord to a full nobleman. Hot on their tails, though, is the mutant mothership, which lands nearby and attacks the other capsules with the Thundercats still inside. Lion-O jumps into action and fights the mutants. Snarf throws the Sword of Omens to Lion-O, who uses it to summon the Thundercats. They wake up and quickly fight off the mutants, who teleport back to their ship and retreat. And there we have Episode 1. Planets exploded, sacrifices were made, and Snarf was there too, I guess. Good start. Jumping on over to the very next episode, the Thundercats are busy trying to salvage as much equipment and food as they can from their wrecked spaceship, where an angry Panthro rummages through destroyed equipment to find enough Thundrillium, the cat's main power source, to build a Thunder tank. Lion-O decides to scout the surrounding area, taking the Sword of Omens and the Claw Shield with him. Tygra and Cheetara go searching for a good place to build Cat's Lair, their new home and headquarters. However, Panthro and Cheetara both question the wisdom of letting Lion-O go alone. Tygra reminds them that Lord Lion-O spent 10 galacto years in a suspension capsule. During that time, he grew in size, but he did not grow up. He missed those first-hand life experiences, especially with the danger of the mutants. Also, don't ask what a galacto year is. It sounds cool, and that's pretty much all that matters. Meanwhile, the mutants are searching for the Thundercats and a spot to build Castle Plundarr, which is the name of their home planet, I guess because it rhymes with thunder. The mutants stumble upon an old black pyramid, and as they approach, it starts emitting lightning, forcing them to land their ship. Inside the pyramid, a being called Mumm-Ra emerges and offers to ally with the mutants to get the Eye of Thundera. No one wants to mess with Mumm-Ra. He's an ancient demon priest who wields the ancient spirits of evil. At first, the mutants reject his offer, and they threaten to blow up Mumm-Ra's pyramid. Mumm-Ra retaliates by sinking their spaceship. See what I mean? The mutants should have listened. Now weaponless, the mutants have no choice but to join forces with him. He teleports them to the woods where Lion-O is scouting alone. The mutants appear in the woods and ambush Lion-O, but he manages to call for help with the Sword of Omens. Panthro, Willy-Kit, and Willy-Cat, who are the Thunder Kittens, by the way, which we mentioned before, arrive to rescue him. Defeated by the Thundercats, the mutants teleport back to Mumm-Ra's pyramid. Lion-O, wondering why Tygra and Cheetara didn't see the cat signal, goes off to find them. Back inside the Black Pyramid, Mumm-Ra mocks the mutants for failing to get the sword from Lion-O. The mutants taunt Mumm-Ra in return, which angers him greatly. He then calls upon the ancient spirits of evil I warned you of before, who are basically his masters, to transform him from his normal, decayed, mummy-like state into his ever-living true form. Once transformed, he flies out of his pyramid. While searching for Tygra and Cheetara, Lion-O comes across a strange black lake filled with thick, hot, bubbling black ooze. Mumm-Ra suddenly appears, and they fight. The sword is knocked from Lion-O's hands and falls into the black lake. Lion-O retrieves it and tries to call the other Thundercats, but the Eye of Thundera, now covered in black ooze, doesn't respond.
Thunder! Thundercats Ho!
Mumm-Ra pins down Lion-O, who desperately holds up his claw shield to defend himself, which shows Mumm-Ra his reflection. Horrified by the years of decay and signs of serious weakness, the old entity withdraws and flees from Lion-O, back to the pyramid to lick his wounds and think of another way to get that sword. The third episode of the series doesn't really give us much more after the close shave with Mumm-Ra, but it does introduce the Berbils, another alien species seeking refuge on Third Earth. Basically, for you Star Wars fans, they're Ewoks, but far more into peace and harmony, and they're robots. They're good robots, though. And that's really all you need to know from this episode. So, on to the next one. The next episode, The Slaves of Castle Plundarr, is the episode in which we're shown just how different the forces of good and evil work. The Thundercats, with their new Berbil friends and their search for Thunderilium, build their new lair from scratch, whereas the mutants and Mumm-Ra, well, they build their lair, Castle Plundarr, by enslaving another race. The Brutemen are creatures that are native to Third Earth and are forced to build the mutants' lair as quickly as possible. But as soon as the cats catch wind of the unlawful slavery, they make it their mission to free the Brutemen, and do so in double quick time. This is another not-so-important episode, but for the visual representation of good versus evil, how could we leave it out? Heading on over to the next episode, called The Trouble with Time, we begin inside Castle Plundarr, where the mutants are unhappy with the food served by their lizard cook. Monkeyan suggests they need a woman's touch, and Slythe agrees, sending him to find some servants. Yeah, I mean, it was the 80s, guys. Nada, a warrior maiden of Third Earth, is in the middle of a spot of fishing when Monkeyan suddenly kidnaps her.
I wonder if she can cook.
Nada cries for help, and her sister Willa arrives with her bow and arrows, scaring mutant Monkeyan away. The sisters are upset how their world has changed since the arrival of the two alien groups. At Cat's lair, Lion-O decides to take the Thunder Tank for a joyride, but the Lord loses control, and the tank zooms around wildly. Hearing the commotion, Panthro jumps in and stops it just before it goes over a cliff. Panthro is upset with Lion-O's antics, and points out their Thundrillium supply is dangerously low. Without it, they can't fuel the tank or the lair. The Thundercats decide to search for more Thundrillium, so Panthro gives each cat a Thundrillium detector, which flickers when the substance is nearby. The Thundercats set out in different directions. Monkeyan overhears their plan and reports back to the mutants. Seeing an opportunity to defeat the Thundercats, they set off to stop them. While in a forest, Lion-O sees Willa being attacked by a dinosaur-like creature called the Lizarthan. He scares it off with his claw shield. He introduces himself, but Willa remains suspicious. Meanwhile, Tygra's detector leads him into a cave, giving off strong Thundrillium readings. Unbeknownst to him, it's the Cave of Time, where anyone who enters ages very rapidly. Tygra begins to age quickly and tries to leave, but is too weak. Back over with Lion-O, he's suddenly ambushed by the mutants in the forest, but Willa saves him with sleep gas arrows. As he thanks her, the Sword of Omens warns him about Tygra. Willa tells him only someone fast enough can rescue Tygra from the cave.
No one can run fast enough to escape aging.
Lion-O thinks of Cheetara and summons the other Thundercats. And so, Panthro, Cheetara, Lion-O, and Willa arrive at the Cave of Time. Cheetara sprints in and brings Tygra out in seconds. Willa mentions a healing pool called the Geyser of Life. They rush to get Tygra there. At the Geyser of Life, they find it guarded by fierce winged water snakes. Lion-O and Cheetara distract the snakes while Tygra enters the waters. He emerges young again, just in the nick of time.
I was tempted to stay in until I was as young as Lion-O.
The next episode begins at Cat's Lair, where Panthro and Tygra are worried about the frequent earthquakes in the area. Tygra goes out to investigate, but the ground opens up and he falls in, and a big monstrous worm drags him away underground. Man, Third Earth is a real mixed bag. On one hand, you got these lovely Berbils, but also horrific giant worms from Dune. I'll stick to First Earth. Thanks. Now underground and being released, Tygra follows a trail of glowing slime left by the worm. He then bumps into Silky, a plant with a human face, who welcomes him to the Garden of Delights and offers him a yellow fruit.
Has no worms. Come, sit.
Tygra tries to resist, but ends up taking a bite and starts hallucinating, unable to stop eating the forbidden fruit. Now having captured Tygra, Silky transforms into Mumm-Ra. The evil mummy gives Tygra another fruit in exchange for stealing the Sword of Omens. Tygra then returns to Cat's Lair while Lion-O and Cheetara climb down to investigate the tunnels created by the worm. Tygra, unable to sleep due to Silky's voice, steals the Sword of Omens and delivers it to Mumm-Ra. Knowing the sword cannot be used by evil, Mumm-Ra summons the mutants, and they agree they need a pure spirit. They set a trap and teleport Willa into Mumm-Ra's pyramid. Mumm-Ra tries to tempt Willa with power, but the sword's sight beyond sight shows her what's happened. She pretends to crave the power to rule Third Earth. The warrior maidens, led by Willa, attack Panthro and Tygra, tying them up. The mutants and Mumm-Ra lock Lion-O, Cheetara, and Panthro in an inescapable room inside Cat's Lair. Panthro uses his belt insignia, a flying recording device, to guide the device out of the room through a skylight. The device records a conversation between Mumm-Ra and Tygra, where Tygra reveals Mumm-Ra will never succeed as long as Lion-O lives.
You're probably right. Warrior maiden!
Mumm-Ra realizes Tygra is right and tells Willa to prepare for battle, giving Tygra another fruit. Tygra only pretends to eat it, and Willa sees this. Everyone is transported to ancient ruins where Mumm-Ra begins his plan. Tygra, now back to his senses, interrupts him. Willa frees Lion-O and throws in the sword. The Thundercats spring into action and defeat the mutants and Mumm-Ra once again. The episode The Ghost Warrior begins with two Bulkins, Hurrick and Bundin, seeking shelter under a giant tree from a wild thunderstorm. Bulkins are another race native to Third Earth. They're basically giant sentient sheep. While the two hide, a lightning bolt rips the tree apart, revealing a hidden chamber. Inside, they push a stone slab, expecting treasure, but instead release the ghost of Groon the Destroyer, a legendary menace of Third Earth. Hurrick and Bundin flee as Groon emerges from the tomb. Does everyone in Third Earth have a secret tomb? Seriously. Looking for a Thundrillium to regain strength, Groon finds Cat's Lair. Inside, the Thundercats experience paranormal things like drops in temperature, strange noises, and a piece of the lair's wall pinning Panthro against another wall. The Thundrillium supply is the final straw, as it drains rapidly. Groon's ghost appears, taunting them. The Thundercats try to fight, but it's like fighting air. Groon grows enormous and promises to return soon to finish them off once and for all. The next day, Groon terrorizes the inhabitants of Third Earth, flattening their villages and demanding fire rocks. The Third Earthers inform the Thundercats that fire rocks were banned due to their uncontrollable power. Tygra recalls a similar element, Thundranium, from Thundera. Lion-O vows to help, though he's unsure how he will do so. Groon finds Thundranium and forges a battle club. At Cat's Lair, the Thundercats wonder how Groon knows so much about them. Lion-O tries to use the Sword of Omens sight beyond sight, but he sees
nothing. The sword showed me nothing.
Tygra explains that the Eye of Thundera has no psychic powers. Cheetara uses her sixth sense, revealing that Groon was once a Thundercat, but was corrupted by greed for power. Yaga banished him after a fierce battle. Finally, Cheetara collapses, exhausted by the vision. Again, this is a bit of a Star Wars-y moment, isn't it? Suddenly, Cat's Lair shakes as giant Groon attacks with his mace. Lion-O realizes they need another ghost to fight Groon. He calls forth Yaga's spear with the Sword of Omens. Groon, anticipating this, engages Yaga in battle. Empowered by Lion-O, Yaga defeats Groon, but the ghastly Groon pretends to offer friendship before yoinking the Sword of Omens. Thankfully, the sword pulls Groon into the sky and disintegrates him. And just like that, another ghostly ghoul is sent packing by the Thundercats. The next episode begins with Lion-O sitting atop Mount Anguish, reminiscing about Thundera. Seeing Lion-O homesick, Yaga appears and tells him about the Time Capsule, which houses a nuclear optocrystal containing the entire history of Thundera. Yaga tells him to find the Time Capsule, which was lost when their spaceship crashed on Third Earth. Lion-O informs the other Thundercats, and they all set off in different directions to find the device. except the Thunder Kittens, who are told to stay in Cat's lair. However, as soon as the adults leave, Willy Kit and Willy Cat sneak out on their hoverboards. Tygra wanders into underground tunnels and encounters the Mole Men, who are burrowing relentlessly. Suddenly, the Mole Master appears and is displeased at Tygra's presence in his mines. He attacks Tygra with his whip, but Tygra scares him off using his invisibility and fire from his bolo whip. Meanwhile, Lion-O tries to cross the River of Despair, but is thwarted by the Black Widow shark patrolling the river. The Unicorn Keeper woman helps by creating a bridge of light across the river. As Lion-O and Snarf cross, the shark repeatedly slams against the bridge. Lion-O tries to use the Sword of Omens to attack the shark, but it causes the bridge to shatter. They make it across as the bridge crumbles. In a swampy area, Cheetara encounters a giant sea serpent. The beast lunges at her, but she's too fast and tricks it into biting its own tail. Panthro, exploring near a shore, faces a crabman who snaps off Panthro's nunchucks with his powerful claw. Luckily, Panthro escapes in the Thunder Tank. Meanwhile, Willy Kit and Willy Cat, while flying over the River Despair, are attacked by the Black Widow shark, which chews Willy Kit's board to bits. Her brother rescues her, and they flee on one board. As Lion-O and Snarf continue searching, Lion-O notices something shiny in a distant cave. He uses sight beyond sight and sees that it's the Time Capsule. He calls the other Thundercats. Entering the cave, Lion-O wonders how the Time Capsule got there, far from their crash site. His question is answered when a huge caveman emerges, claiming the capsule. The caveman challenges Lion-O to a arm wrestling match, with the winner claiming the Time Capsule. Lion-O accepts, and the intense match begins. The other Thundercats arrive to witness before Lion-O finally wins, and the caveman concedes defeat, disappearing back into his cave. The Thundercats take the Time Capsule back to Cat's lair, and another adventure is in the books. Also, I'm just saying this now, if you had no idea what Thundercats was and heard me recap this episode just now, I'm pretty sure that your brain just exploded. Because good lord, this whole episode is absolutely insane. Okay, so our next episode is another one that's not that important story-wise, but it's the debut of Thundercats cult classic character Mongor. Basically, the Thunder Kittens Willy Kit and Willy Cat break open a seal and release the devil. Well, as much of a devil as you can imagine when it comes to a kid's show. Seriously, this stuff is pretty satanic. And just like every single villain in the show, he has his own secret tomb, which Lion-O seals him in for the rest of eternity. Like I say, not important to the story, but as a character, essential. The episode, The Return to Thundera, begins deep inside Castle Plundarr. The mutants show off their latest creation, a Plundarian warbot, to Mumm-Ra. Slythe demonstrates the robot's abilities by turning a nearby frog dog into a statue. Although Mumm-Ra is not impressed, Slythe assures him that the robot has many more deadly weapons. He then sends the robot to attack Cat's lair. Meanwhile, at Cat's lair, the Thundercats inspect the time capsule they recovered from the cavemen. The device projects a hologram of Thundera, and Lion-O marvels at its beauty. Later that night, while on watch, Lion-O decides to try out the time capsule himself. When he switches it on, he stands in the path of the projector, and is somehow transported back to Thundera just before the planet's destruction. The approaching warbot is detected by Cat's lair scans, and the Thundercats gather in the control room. Alarmed by the sight of the behemoth and wondering where Lion-O is, Panthro fires lasers at the warbot, but it deflects the rays back, shattering the lair's eyes. Panthro then uses the ballista to shoot various deterrents, including fire, ice, a missile, and a giant chain, but the warbot overcomes them all. Back on Thundera, Lion-O meets his old pet, Kano, a saber-toothed cat, who leads him to his father, Claudus. He sees Slythe and Vultureman trying to force Claudus to give them the warbot plans. Lion-O jumps in and drives the mutants away. Claudus gives Lion-O the warbot plans, hoping they might be useful in another world, another time. Lion-O tries to convince Claudus to leave it with him, but Claudus refuses, needing to boost the guidance system on Yaga's ship. As the planet's earthquakes worsen, Lion-O bids his father farewell, and he leaves. Meanwhile, the warbot fires huge chains that attach the cat's lair's head, pulling out the entire head of the fortress. The robot then jumps into the lair and fires a gray substance at the Thundercats, turning them into statues. At that moment, Lion-O arrives back at the lair and uses the Sword of Omens to free his fellow Thundercats. He then uses the sword to push the robot away from the lair. Lion-O shoots out of the lair using the ballista and lands near the warbot's feet. As the robot raises its giant foot to crush him, Lion-O inserts his sword into a small red disc on the warbot's foot. This causes the robot's foot to explode, destroying the entire thing.
The next episode on our list is actually the first of a 5-part mini-movie known as the Lion-O's Anointment Saga. Think of it as Hercules proving that he's a hero. The first installment starts on Lion-O's 20th birthday, and he's excited not only for the celebration, but because he will be crowned Lord of the Thundercats. When he wakes up, he finds Cat's lair deserted except for Snarf. Snarf advises him to eat well because he has a long journey ahead. Snarf explains that while Lion-O is the hereditary lord of the Thundercats, he must prove himself worthy of the title. To do this, he must face each of his fellow Thundercats in an anointment trial, unarmed, to prove his worthiness. Lion-O is shocked to find the Sword of Omens and Claw Shield missing, and Snarf explains that the trials must be faced unarmed. His first test is a duel with Panthro to test his strength. Lion-O tries to dodge Panthro's blows and fight back, and the two are almost evenly matched. Suddenly, the trial is interrupted by an earthquake, sending rocks flying towards them. Panthro tries to stop a boulder from causing a landslide that would destroy a nearby village, but is about to be crushed. Lion-O runs to help and manages to lift the boulder away himself. Panthro, satisfied that Lion-O has proven his strength, hands over the Thundercat emblem from his belt. Lion-O continues to the next trial, where Cheetara awaits. On the second day of his anointment trials, Lion-O must race Cheetara in the Trial of Speed, where they must run through the dangerous lands of Third Earth. Though Cheetara is by far the fastest among the Thundercats, her speed can only last for a short time period. After that, she runs as fast as any other Thundercat. Lion-O takes a shorter but more dangerous route to make up for Cheetara's advantage. So, yeah, this episode is just kind of one big race. Not really that exciting, but, Lion-O has to prove his worth somehow.
You threw me that race, Cheetara.
How dare you say that to me?
The third test is a test of cunning, and Lion-O has to outwit the Thunder Kittens, Willy Kit and Willy Cat in the Maze of Infinity. But there are more than Thunder Kittens lurking about. All three, and especially Lion-O himself, have to deal with the mutants, who are up to their usual shenanigans. To beat them all through the maze, Lion-O turns their own tricks back on them, beating the Thunder Kittens with ease. The kittens hand over Lion-O's emblems, which he'll need in his next trial against Tygra. The fourth trial against Tygra is the one of Mind Power. The trial takes place at Hook Mountain, which is a gigantic snow-filled biome. The Tiger clan on Thundera were given special mind powers that enable them to produce illusions to their enemies. Lion-O must be able to distinctly separate reality from illusion. Luckily, Lion-O is clever enough to see past Tygra's illusions and is able to earn his Thundercat insignia, leaving only one trial left for young Lion-O to conquer, the Trial of Evil. On the fifth and final day of his anointment, Lion-O must prove himself worthy to be the lord of the Thundercats one final time by defeating his greatest enemy, the demon priest, Mumm-Ra. Lion-O finds a way into Mumm-Ra's Black Pyramid Tomb Fortress and discovers that Mumm-Ra's sarcophagus is the real source of his power. He defeats Mumm-Ra by throwing the sarcophagus into the evil cauldron.
Mumm-Ra, farewell!
No, really, it's called the Evil Cauldron. Before this final showdown, Lion-O faces demons and other monsters, where he loses the Sword of Omens and all of the other artifacts that he's gathered along the way. So now he's facing his toughest foe without any weapons. But thanks to the trial of mind power and the fact that Mumm-Ra's power source has been destroyed, Lion-O manages to turn the tables by defeating the demon, proving that he truly is the Lord of the Thundercats. The episode Mumm-Rana sees the debut of a new powerful entity, but will they be a friend or a foe? The story begins with Mumm-Ra discovering the existence of Mumm-Rana, a sorceress who lives in the White Pyramid. Basically, if you couldn't tell, she's the yin to Mumm-Ra's yang. If he's the embodiment of evil, she's the embodiment of good. This obviously sends shockwaves through the demon priest, who begins to scheme a way to destroy her before she becomes a problem. Meanwhile, the Thundercats, who have just beat the mutants in a blaring space battle, are alerted to strange energy readings from the strange White Pyramid. Curious, Lion-O, Panthro, and Cheetara set out to investigate. They meet Mumm-Rana, who welcomes them warmly. She explains that she uses her powers to protect Third Earth from evil, so the Thundercats quickly form a bond with her, as they appreciate her commitment to peace and justice. I know this is just a kid's show, but man, where has she been for the other 62 episodes? Mumm-Ra, determined to destroy Mumm-Rana, disguises himself as an injured old man and tricks Mumm-Rana into letting her guard down. He then attacks her, using his dark magic to weaken her. He wants to fully control her mind, so evil gains another powerful ally. The Thundercats arrive just in time to witness Mumm-Ra's treachery. A fierce battle ensues between the Thundercats and Mumm-Ra. Lion-O attempts to use the Sword of Omens to fight Mumm-Ra, but Mumm-Ra's dark powers prove to be a formidable challenge. During the fight, Mumm-Rana gathers her remaining strength and joins the battle. Together, she and the Thundercats manage to drive Mumm-Ra away. Mumm-Ra retreats, vowing to return and to destroy them all. After the battle, Mumm-Rana thanks the Thundercats for their help and explains that the balance between good and evil on Third Earth depends on the existence of both her and Mumm-Ra. the Thundercats return to Cat's Lair, understanding the importance of allies like Mumm-Rana in their ongoing fight against evil. The second season of the show begins with another 5-part story, Thundercats Ho. The first part starts with Lion-O waking up from an awful nightmare he's been having about leaving Thundera. He vividly remembers the painful decision to leave some of his fellow Thunderians behind because the ship could not stay any longer during the planet's catastrophic destruction. Haunted by this memory, he's relieved when the spirit of Yaga appears to him and explains that the Thunderians did not perish in the disaster. Instead, they managed to survive and are now on Third Earth, the new home of the Thundercats. Determined to find his lost comrades, Lion-O seeks the help of Cheetara, who uses her psychic powers to locate their exact position. Meanwhile, Mumm-Ra overhears their conversation and devises a sinister plan. He sends the Berserkers, a group of ruthless mercenaries, to capture the Thunderians and bring them to him. As the Thundercats prepare for the rescue mission, they face numerous challenges and fierce battles against Mumm-Ra's forces. Lion-O's leadership and the team's unity are put to the test as they navigate the treacherous landscapes of Third Earth, ending with the Berserker's ship hovering over the heroes. In the second part of the story, Lion-O leads a daring raid on the Berserker's ship, determined to rescue the captured Thunderians. Despite his best efforts in a fierce battle, the rescue attempt ultimately fails, and the Thunderians remain in the clutches of the captors. The Berserkers, following Mumm-Ra's orders, transport the Thunderians to the perilous Fire Rock Mountain, where the dangerous Thundranium we mentioned earlier is found. The Thunderians, weakened by the exposure to the Thundranium, find themselves trapped and unable to muster the strength needed to break free from their bonds. The mountain's hostile environment further complicates their situation, making any escape attempts futile. Lion-O and the other Thundercats must now devise a new plan to rescue their comrades from the seemingly impossible problem. The third part of the saga begins with Lion-O rushing into battle without the proper planning in a desperate attempt to save the captured Thunderians. But because of the presence of Thundranium, his strength is soon sapped completely, and a fire rock avalanche heads for him. Luckily, he manages to weave his way through the oncoming rock slide, but in doing so, he accidentally loses the Sword of Omens. Meanwhile, Panthro engages in a fierce battle with the Fist Pounder, a formidable war machine controlled by the Berserkers, using the Thunder Tank. The clash between these two powerful machines is intense. But more importantly, Panthro is managing to buy Lion-O some much-needed time. Time quickly runs out, as the situation becomes far more dangerous. Slithe and the mutants arrive at Fire Rock Mountain with a sinister plan to take control of the prisoners, adding yet another problem for the Thundercats to get through. The penultimate part of the Thundercats Ho story picks up where the last left off, with the trapped Thunderians determined to escape their captors, making a bold attempt to break free. However, their efforts are thwarted when Mumm-Ra summons Hachiman, a skilled samurai warrior, and places a spell on him. Under the influence of this spell, Hachiman is made to believe that Lion-O is the cause of his great-uncle's spirit suffering, turning him against the young lord of the Thundercats. Now, somewhat recovered and determined to fight for his people's freedom, Lion-O continues his climb, but he's soon confronted by the bewitched Hachiman. The two break into battle, but Lion-O senses that Hachiman is a purer soul than his evil actions are showing, so while defending himself, the young lord tries to break through to Hachiman's true self. This tactic works, and Hachiman begins to overcome the spell's influence, realizing that Lion-O is not his enemy. He manages to break free from Mumm-Ra's control and even saves Lion-O's life. Recognizing the greater threat posed by Mumm-Ra and the need to rescue the Thunderians, Hachiman and Lion-O decide to join forces. Together, they plan their next move, combining their strengths and skills to outsmart the mutants, Mumm-Ra, and to hopefully save the Thunderians. And now, the final part of the Thundercats Ho saga. Lion-O and Hachiman press on with their mission to rescue the Thunderians from Fire Rock Mountain. Despite their combined efforts, Lion-O remains unable to bypass the Thundranium that still weakens him, preventing him from reaching and rescuing the Thunderians. In this moment of desperation and potential defeat, the spirit of Yaga once again appears to Lion-O and reveals the existence of the Star of Thundera, a powerful artifact capable of nullifying the effects of Thundranium. Yaga promises to retrieve the star for the Thundercats, assuring Lion-O that he will return as soon as possible with the means to save their friends. However, Mumm-Ra learns of Yaga's plan and dispatches Grun the Destroyer to intercept and stop Yaga from obtaining the Star of Thundera. But Grun is no match for Yaga, who manages to secure the star's power and deliver it to Lion-O. With the power of the Star of Thundera now in his possession, Lion-O gains the strength needed to counteract the effects of the Thundranium. But just as hope seems within reach, Mumm-Ra manages to steal the star from Lion-O, attempting to harness its immense power for himself. But his attempt to control the star's power backfires and destroys Mumm-Ra. No, really, it was as easy as that. Now freed from the threat of Mumm-Ra, Lion-O successfully rescues the captured Thunderians and inducts them into the Thundercats. The new recruits are Bengali, Pumyra, and Linkso. Hopefully they will become stable members of the team as they battle evil on Third Earth. Well,
that's been made a little easier now that Mumm-Ra's gone, right? Well, I'm not quite sure how to say this, but back on the Thundercats Ho 5-part thriller, we have another 5-part mini-movie called Mumm-Ra Lives. He wasn't gone very long, was he? The episode begins showing what exactly happened when the star of Thundera, Mumm-Ra, wasn't destroyed, but mortally wounded by its power. He could barely handle the Thundercats when he was in his stride, but now with 3 new cats to deal with, the demon priest decides to bolster his forces by releasing his old enemies, the Lunatics. These powerful and malevolent beings have been imprisoned in Darkside, a treacherous region of Third Earth, and Mumm-Ra hopes that their alliance will turn the tide in his favor. While the Thundercats celebrate their victory over Mumm-Ra and welcome their new members, their joyous occasion is abruptly interrupted. Snarf overhears sinister plans at Castle Plundarr after following Mammoth there from the Berbil village.
2 degrees to the right should do it.
Mammoth is Mumm-Ra's trusted dog, if that wasn't very obvious. Snarf learns that the mutants under Mumm-Ra's command are planning to release the Lunatics to strengthen their evil ranks.
Lunatics of Plundarr.
This revelation brings a sudden end to the festivities as the Thundercats realize that their battle against evil is far from over. The threat posed by the Lunatics looms large, and the Thundercats must prepare for the new challenges that lie ahead. The second installment shows, just as the Thundercats feared, the Lunatics are successfully released from their imprisonment in Darkside. They quickly begin to wreak havoc, targeting the Thundercats' Thundrillium mine and looting its valuable resources. They then start kidnapping people from the local villages, spreading fear and chaos across Third Earth. Lion-O, along with the Thunder Kittens Willy Kit and Willy Cat, have their first encounter with the Lunatics. Their weapons are weak against the Lunatics due to the small supply of Thundrillium, but Bengali steps up and shows his skills as a blacksmith, creating powerful weapons that doesn't need any power supply. Lion-O battles his way through the Lunatics, who retreat, but vow all is not over. The young lord turns to his friends, the Berbils and the sheep-like Balkans, and warns them that there is no safe place now on Third Earth. In the third part, the Thundercats decide that in order to safeguard Third Earth, they need to construct the Tower of Omens. This new structure is designed to monitor threats, particularly the movement of the Sky Tomb, the Lunatics' formidable fortress. Another tomb. Does anyone not have a tomb? The task of running and maintaining the Tower of Omens is entrusted to the new Thundercats Bengali, Pumyra, and Linkso, who take on their responsibilities with determination and dedication as they're still indebted to their young lord. However, Mammoth, Mumm-Ra's loyal canine companion, disguises himself as a Berbil to spy on the Thundercats and gather intelligence on their plans. His incognito act allows the Lunatics to learn about the newly built Tower of Omens, its strengths, its weaknesses, but most importantly, that it was designed to beat them. Acting on his intelligence, the Lunatics launch an attack right on the tower, aiming to destroy it and weaken the Thundercats' defenses. Meanwhile, Snarfer, Snarf's nephew, contacts his uncle to inform him of his imminent arrival on Third Earth. This news brings a mixed bag of elation and concern. I mean, you can't get enough of Snarfs on your team, right?
I told you never to call me Uncle Osbert.
But on the other hand, you're inviting him to maybe meet his death. Frustrated by the continual failures of the Lunatics in their attempts to defeat the Thundercats, Mumm-Ra decides to take matters into his own hands. He calls upon his masters, the ancient spirits of evil, pleading with them to restore him to full health and to give him his powers once more. The spirits hear his plea and animate the 4 giant statues in their temple, pouring their dark energies into Mumm-Ra and transforming him back into his terrifying, ever-living form. Meanwhile, Snarfer travels to Third Earth from the planet of the Snarfs, experiencing a catastrophic malfunction and crash landing in the dangerous region of Darkside. I knew something like this would happen. The Lunatics, using Red Eye's enhanced vision, quickly become aware of Snarfer's crash and set out to capture him, seeing an opportunity to get one over on the Thundercats. But our feline friends are also aware of Snarfer's arrival and swiftly head out to rescue him before the Lunatics can get there. That doesn't quite go to plan, though, as their foes arrive and try to capture Snarfer. But although he's small in size, his heart and bravery is gigantic, and he manages to evade the Lunatics until the cats can get there. Red Eye, one of the Lunatics, sees the oncoming cats and disrupts the signal to Linkso's Braille board, complicating their rescue mission. Undeterred, Linkso skillfully pilots the Thunderstrike into Darkside, navigating the environment and successfully reaching Snarfer. The Lunatics tried to destroy the Thunderstrike, but the cats and Snarfer escape back to the Tower of Omens to put together a plan to take down the Lunatics once and for all. The final episode of the Mumm-Ra Lives mini-movie begins with the Lunatics completing their work on the Sky Tomb, and once complete, they consider releasing their brute men, Wallows, and Balkan slaves as they no longer find them useful. Yep, they enslaved our sheep-like friends. Their plans take a dark turn, though, when Mumm-Ra suddenly materializes inside Sky Tomb.
You fool! You cannot get rid of these slaves!
He instructs the Lunatics to use the slaves as bait to lure the Thundercats into a trap, fully aware that the heroes won't miss an opportunity to liberate their friends. Over at the Tower of Omens, the Thundercats, as Mumm-Ra predicted, are already planning a way to rescue. However, the cats also realize that there's a chance that Mumm-Ra has returned, so to confirm their suspicions, Lynxo and Cheetara take the Thunderclaw to the Black Pyramid, while Bengali and the Thunderkittens are assigned to guard the Tower of Omens and Cat's Lair, respectively. The rest of the team, including Lion-O, heads to Sky Tomb in the Thunder Tank. Upon their arrival in Darkside, the Thundercats are ambushed by the Lunatics, who are laying in wait. Red-Eye easily overpowers Tygra, Alluro hypnotizes Panthro, Chilla freezes Pumyra, and Luna and Amok manage to knock out Lion-O. The defeated Thundercats are then captured and taken to Sky Tomb. Meanwhile, inside Mumm-Ra's pyramid, Cheetara and Lynxo discover an ancient talisman. This powerful artifact enables them to repel an attack by the ancient spirits of evil and Mammoth, allowing them to escape the pyramid. They quickly make their way to Sky Tomb, where Lynxo uses the talisman to confront Mumm-Ra. During the battle, Lion-O discovers that Mumm-Ra's reflection is no longer his weakness, rendering their old strategy from the very first episode absolutely useless. However, Lynxo's use of the talisman proves decisive, and they manage to defeat Mumm-Ra once more. The Thundercats, with their enemies thwarted, rescue the enslaved beings and return to their fortress. Victorious, but aware that Mumm-Ra may be defeated, but he's never truly gone. After an uneventful rest of Season 2, Season 3 opened up with another 5-part mini-movie titled ThunderCubs, and this promises to be the most story-rich saga of the entire series. The first part begins with Mumm-Ra recounting the mammoth tale of how many years ago, Ratilla, an ancient mutant warlord armed with the formidable sword of Plundarr, attempting to steal the treasure of Thundera. However, he was quickly stopped by Yaga, who managed to banish Ratilla and cast the sword of Plundarr into a deep canyon on Thundera. Unfortunately, the sword's immense power could not be contained, and its uncontrollable energy eventually led to the catastrophic destruction of Thundera. Determined to reclaim this powerful artifact, Mumm-Ra and Mammoth embark on a journey through time and space, using the Mumm-Raft. They travel to the debris of Thundera, now scattered across the cosmos, in the hopes of locating both the Sword of Plundarr and the legendary treasure of Thundera. So, could he have done this at, any time, or did we have to wait for 3 seasons? Anyway, the Thundercats soon learn of an extraordinary phenomenon taking place in deep space. The fragmented pieces of Thundera appear to be merging and reforming the planet. This astonishing development reveals a new black pyramid on the reformed planet dubbed New Thundera, or Second Thundera. Let's keep things consistent. While the majority of the Thundercats focus on designing and constructing booster rockets to enable the Feliner, great name by the way, to travel to New Thundera, Lion-O and Panthro decide to investigate the Black Pyramid on Third Earth. Their exploration, however, leads them to a trap set by Mumm-Ra. Despite the danger, Lion-O and Panthro manage to escape without serious injuries, and return to Cat's Lair to continue working on the booster rockets. Recognizing that the Tower of Omens is only defended by Lynxo and the Thunderkittens, Vultureman and Jackalman of the Mutants see an opportunity to strike.
And the Thundercats have deserted the Tower of Omens.
Vultureman informs the Lunatics of this vulnerability, and the Red-Eye and Tugmug seize the chance to attack. Tugmug may be the best character name of all time, by the way. Together, they storm the Tower of Omens and capture Lynxo and the Thunderkittens, leaving them free to do as they please in the cat's home. The second part begins with the Thundercats returning to the Thunder Tank to rescue Lynxo, Willykit, and Willycat from the Lunatics. Using the Sword of Omens, Lion-O unleashes a powerful blast that destroys the Lunatacker, freeing the captured Thundercats and forcing Red-Eye and Tugmug to flee. Inside the Sky Tomb, Luna becomes furious with Vultureman for blaming the Lunatics for their failed plan, and has him thrown out of their fortress. Vultureman, hearing about the Thundercats' plan to follow Mumm-Ra to New Thundera, and seeing as he's alienated the Lunatics, he decides to interfere and hopefully gain Mumm-Ra's favor. He heads back to Castle Plundarr and starts repairing the damaged Rat Star, confusing the other mutants. From the information gathered by Lynxo's Braille board, the Thundercats learn that parts of New Thundera are affected by the moons of Plundarr, making these areas as dangerous as the individual moons. To survive and explore these evil regions, the Thundercats create new equipment like night vision goggles, anti-gravity boots, and thermal suits. With the Feliner's booster rockets completed, the Thundercats set off for New Thundera. However, they soon encounter Vultureman and Slythe in the Rat Star. The mutants fire at the Feliner, paralyzing all the Thundercats inside. Willycat, observing from the Lair's control room, alerts Bengali, and together they take the Thunderclaw to save the team. Snarf manages to place the Sword of Omens in Lion-O's hand, enabling him to break free from the paralysis and free the others.
As the feliner breaks free, Vultureman prepares to fire at them again, but Bengali and Willykit arrive just in time, distracting the Rat Star. This gives the feliner time to recover. Lion-O then uses the Sword of Omens to blast the Rat Star, sending it crashing into Hook Mountain. Relieved at their escape, the Thundercats receive a transmission from Linkso informing them that increased volcanic activity on New Thundera likely means that Mumm-Ra has obtained the Sword of Plundarr. Picking up right where the second part left off with Mumm-Ra, desperate for more power, he is begging the ancient spirits of evil to bestow upon him the Sword of Plundarr. The spirits oblige, and draw the sword from the depths of New Thundera, granting Mumm-Ra immense power.
The ancients have bestowed the Sword of Plundarr.
With the sword in his possession, Mumm-Ra's primary goal becomes finding the treasure of Thundera. He orders Mammoth to drive the Snarfs even harder in their search for the treasure. Meanwhile, the Thundercats arrive on New Thundera in the feliner, carefully parking far from the New Black Pyramid to avoid detection by Mumm-Ra. Snarf and Snarfer urge the Thundercats to immediately free the Snarfs, but Lion-O insists that preventing Mumm-Ra from obtaining the Sword of Plundarr and the treasure of Thundera is more critical. Unwilling to let their fellow Snarfs suffer any longer, Snarf and Snarfer secretly steal some equipment and set out at night to rescue the Snarfs on their own. Unfortunately, their plan backfires, and they, along with Snarf Egbert, are captured by Mumm-Ra. Only Snarf Oswald escapes and finds the Thundercats to inform them of what happened. As the Thundercats head to rescue Snarf and Snarfer, they encounter Snarfer, who's actually Mumm-Ra in disguise. Mumm-Ra, opposing as Snarfer, suggests that Lion-O use the Sword of Omens, sight beyond sight, to locate the treasure of Thundera. Lion-O complies, and as soon as the treasure is found, Mumm-Ra reveals his true identity and uses the Sword of Plundarr to capture all the Thundercats. As Mumm-Ra attempts to flee with the chest containing the treasure of Thundera, the Sword of Omens springs to life and destroys the chest, scattering the pieces of the treasure all over New Thundera. The only artifact Mumm-Ra manages to retain is the Book of Omens, which he takes back to his pyramid.
It contains the key to your Thundercat powers.
Shortly after, Slythe and Vultureman crash on New Thundera in the Rat Star. Mumm-Ra summons them to his pyramid through Mammoth and entrusts them with the Book of Omens for safekeeping. To protect them from the dangers of New Thundera, he casts a magical spell on them. However, unbeknownst to the mutants, Mumm-Ra has given them a fake Book of Omens to mislead the Thundercats, buying himself time to decipher the real book's secrets. The Thundercats take the bait and pursue the mutants in the feliner. The chase leads them through the treacherous caverns of cold, where the feliner's engines completely freeze over, forcing the Thundercats to continue on foot. They find themselves in the Canyons of Youth, where Panthro, Tygra, Cheetara, Snarf, and Snarfer regress to their childhood form. Only Lion-O remains unaffected, protected with the Sword of Omens.
We're just cubs. The Thundercats are the best of Thundera.
Lion-O uses the sword to transfer the knowledge of the Thundercats to the ThunderCubs, helping them remember their skills and abilities. When Mammoth attacks Lion-O, Tygra uses a magical flute found earlier by Cheetara to calm him. From the Sword of Omens, Lion-O learns that the Thundercats who stayed on Third Earth have been captured by the Lunatics. He instructs the ThunderCubs to take the feliner back to Third Earth to rescue their teammates, but Mumm-Ra appears before they can depart. In the final part of the ThunderCubs Saga, Mumm-Ra tries to stop the ThunderCubs from taking off in the feliner, but Lion-O uses the Sword of Omens to create a takeoff ramp, allowing them to escape to Third Earth. Baby Snarf then uses the magical flute to hypnotize Mammoth, and Lion-O seizes the opportunity to blast Mumm-Ra back to his New Black Pyramid. Inside the pyramid, the ancient spirits of evil instruct Mumm-Ra to rest, promising him phenomenal powers during his next transformation. On Third Earth, the Lunatics force the captured Thundercats to mine Thundrillium, even enslaving the Berbils. However, the Thunderkittens manage to escape with the help of Snowman, who shows them an approaching object, which Willycat identifies as the feliner. The twins are excited, but surprised when they discover the ThunderCubs instead of their adult comrades. Despite this, they head to Darkside to rescue the Thundercats at the Tower of Omens. Navigating the Forest of Mist with a cat's eyes, the feliner crashes, losing a wing and stranding the ThunderCubs. Fortunately, Willycat remembers Cheetara's sixth sense, and they use it to reach Darkside. Back on New Thundera, Lion-O and Baby Snarf enter the New Black Pyramid to retrieve the Book of Omens. The pyramid seems empty, until Mumm-Ra, now more powerful and wielding the Sword of Plundarr, emerges. A fierce duel ensues, with Lion-O struggling against Mumm-Ra's enhanced strength. Just as it seems Lion-O is going to be defeated, he dodges a critical strike, causing Mumm-Ra's sword to impale one of the statues of the ancient spirits of evil, initiating the pyramid's collapse. As Mumm-Ra falls into the cauldron, Lion-O and Snarf escape with the Sword of Omens. Meanwhile, the ThunderCubs and Thunderkittens infiltrate Skytomb through the ventilation shafts. They disable the power, throwing the Lunatics into chaos and freeing the captured Thundercats and Berbils. As the rescued Thundercats and Berbils make their escape, they encounter the Lunatics, ready for a showdown. Just then, Lion-O arrives in the Mumm-Raft, severing the rocky outcropping that the lunatics stand on, plunging them into the water. Snarf calls everyone aboard the Mumm-Raft, and they escape in a swirl of light. At the Cave of Time, the ThunderCubs are restored to their normal ages, and a celebration ensues. Meanwhile, Mammoth, snapping out of his trance, heads to the Black Pyramid. Mumm-Ra, stranded on New Thundera, contacts him through the cauldron. The ancient spirits of evil agree to bring Mumm-Ra back to Third Earth, and Mammoth joyfully leaps into his arms. No matter what happens, he just won't go away. The next episode, The Key to Thundera, is finally a standalone. But don't worry, for those of you craving those mini-movies, there's one more 5-parter on the way very soon. But for now, we begin inside Cat's lair, where Lion-O and Snarf are struggling to decipher the enigmatic Book of Omens. Frustrated by their lack of progress, Snarf suggests using the Sword of Omens as a magnifying glass. When Lion-O follows his advice, the sword and the book interact in a surprising way, teleporting Lion-O inside the book. A terrified Snarf quickly fetches Cheetara to show her what happened, but he too gets transported inside the book. Meanwhile, Mumm-Ra, who has been observing these events from his cauldron, seizes the opportunity to strike. He appears when Cat's lair, and, despite Cheetara's best efforts to stop him, succeeds in taking both the Book of Omens and the Sword of Omens back to his Black Pyramid. Inside the Book of Omens, Lion-O and Snarf encounter the Guardian of the Book. When they fail to present the Key of Thundera, the Guardian summons 4 dragon pillars that blast them with fire. Desperate, Lion-O summons the Sword of Omens, which pulls them out of the book just before Mumm-Ra can destroy it. Mumm-Ra then launches an all-out attack on Lion-O. Overwhelmed, Lion-O manages to call the other Thundercats just before Mumm-Ra can mummify him and Snarf. Mumm-Ra tries to use the sword on the book, but this results in him being transported inside the book as well. Cheetara and Willikit arrive at the pyramid and free Lion-O and Snarf. Lion-O then re-enters the book to rescue Mumm-Ra before they all return to Cat's lair. Back at Cat's lair, they reunite with Panthro and Tygra, who have just returned from New Thundera with the Key of Thundera. The Season 3 finale, The Last Day, begins with Mumm-Ra facing the wrath of the ancient spirits of evil. Frustrated by his constant failure and the loss of his allies, the mutants and the lunatics, the sentient statues give Mumm-Ra one final day to eliminate the Thundercats. To emphasize their point, they banish Mumm-Ra's beloved pet Mammoth and transform Mumm-Ra into his most powerful form yet, destroying his pyramid in the process. A series of violent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions across Third Earth signals the beginning of Mumm-Ra's mayhem.
What's happening?
The Thundercats analyze the geological disturbances and predict total planetary destruction in less than 12 hours. Suspecting Mumm-Ra to be behind these events, the heroes set out in their vehicles to find him. Tygra and Cheetara are the first to encounter the newly empowered Mumm-Ra, who has grown to gigantic proportion. Mumm-Ra easily dispatches the 2 Thundercats, teleporting them to an unknown dimension. Lion-O and Panthro arrive and bravely fight Mumm-Ra, but Panthro soon joins Tygra and Cheetara in this mysterious dimension. Mumm-Ra then traps Lion-O in a prison of stone and molten lava, and banishes the Thunder Kittens after destroying the Tower of Omens with one mighty slash of the Sword of Plundarr. Following Lingso's advice, Snarf arms himself with various items from the Treasure of Thundera and enters the Book of Omens, hoping to learn the secret to defeating Mumm-Ra from the Guardian. Meanwhile, Yaga joins the fight and transports himself and the Thundercats trapped in limbo into the Eye of Thundera, giving it enough power to break Lion-O out of his rocky prison and fly him straight to Mumm-Ra. Before Lion-O and Mumm-Ra clash again, an image of Snarf appears in the Eye of Thundera, informing Lion-O that he only needs to survive until sundown to defeat Mumm-Ra. Despite Mumm-Ra having the upper hand in their second battle, Lion-O manages to hold on until the day ends. As soon as the day is over, the ancient spirits of evil punish Mumm-Ra the same way they did Mammoth. Mumm-Ra, now trapped in glass, howls in despair and is banished from Third Earth. The start of Season 4 is another Thundercats 5-parter, titled Return to Thundera. Having successfully rid Third Earth of the mutants and lunatics, and with Mumm-Ra banished from the planet, the Thundercats decide it's time to return to their home planet, New Thundera. Before departing, though, they ensure Mumm-Ra's influence is eradicated by blowing up his Black Pyramid. You know, just in case. As well as that, they appoint the League of Third Earth to safeguard the planet in their absence. Tygra and Pumyra stay behind to take care of the Tower of Omens and Cat's lair, maintaining communication with Third Earth. As soon as the Thundercats leave in the Feliner, the ancient spirits of evil resurrect themselves from the rubble and free Mumm-Ra from his banishment. Mumm-Ra, now empowered, heads to New Thundera in the Mumm-Raft, where the ancient spirits erect a brand new Black Pyramid for him. The Thundercats arrive on New Thundera and land in the Valley of the Stone Giants. The seemingly inert statues come to life and attack the Thundercats, but Lion-O convinces them that the Thundercats are their friends, pacifying the giants. With the help of the Snarfs, the Thundercats begin constructing a new cat's lair in the valley. Observing these events in his cauldron, Mumm-Ra hatches a new plan to destroy the Thundercats. Disguised as Yaga the Wise, Mumm-Ra travels to the Great Beneath and deceives the ancient sorceress Yagara into believing that the Thundercats are evil beings in disguise. He presents a fake Book of Omens depicting false Thundercats. Yagara, misled by Mumm-Ra, adjusts the Mighty Gyroscope to reduce the gravity in the Valley of the Stone Giants, causing the Thundercats and everything in the valley to start floating toward the sky. As the cats struggle to find a foothold, Lion-O uses the Sword of Omens to send out the cat signal. The signal frees Yagara from Mumm-Ra's spell, but before she can act, Mumm-Ra flees, taking the gyroscope's regulator with him. Without the regulator, the gyroscope spins erratically, but thankfully, Yagara manages to temporarily control it, stabilizing the gravity in the Valley of the Stone Giants. The Thundercats and Snarfs are struggling to construct the new cat's lair due to frequent erratic tremors and gravitational fluctuations occurring all over New Thundera. Suddenly, Snarfer rushes to the construction site with urgent news. He's picked up a distress call on the Snarf Communicator. Sounds like a real high-tech piece of work. Anyway, the call is from Thunderian refugees, who were making their way to New Thundera but were captured near Churning Canyon by Two-Time and are being held in Dome Down. Lion-O, Cheetara, and Snarf quickly head to the canyon to rescue their fellow countrymen while the rest of the Thundercats continue work on the lair. Inside the Great Beneath, Yagara makes every effort to stabilize the Mighty Gyroscope, but cannot do so without the regulator, which Mumm-Ra had taken earlier. Meanwhile, Mumm-Ra frees Groon from his tomb prison on Third Earth and transports him to Churning Canyon to intercept the Thundercat trio. Lion-O and Cheetara fight valiantly, but are overpowered by the mighty Groon. He smashes the Sword of Omens blade and ties the two Thundercats to a churning rock, hoping that they're going to be crushed by the rocks. Lion-O instructs Snarf to take the broken Sword of Omens to Bengali for repair. While making his way out of the canyon, Snarf is captured by Char, a blacksmith and scavenger, who pulls Snarf into his ship being called the Flying Furnace. Char claims the broken sword as his own, and despite Snarf's objections, proceeds to repair it, making it as good as new in the short time. Cheetara senses that the sword has been repaired, and Lion-O calls it to his hands. With the sword restored, Lion-O frees himself and Cheetara, and they engage in another battle with Groon. This time, the repaired sword seems even more powerful, allowing Lion-O to defeat Groon and send him back to his tomb on Third Earth. The Thundercats reconvene at the construction site of the new cat's lair, where they thank Char for repairing the sword. Char, in turn, apologizes for initially wanting to keep the sword for himself. At their first council meeting inside the partially constructed new cat's lair, the Thundercats discuss the recent events, including the unexplained earth tremors and the distress call from the Thunderian refugees. Lion-O instructs Cheetara, Lynxo, and Bengali to search for the refugees across all quadrants of New Thundera. Meanwhile, Panthro unveils the Whisker, a new tracking vehicle he and the Thunderkittens developed. Hoping that the Whisker's probes will help them determine the cause of the Earth's tremors, the Thundercats decide to take the vehicle out for its maiden trip. While piloting the Whisker, the Thundercats suddenly find themselves trapped inside an unbreakable magnetic field, which pulls them into a massive spaceship known as Dome Down. Inside the ship, they discover the Thunderian refugees they were searching for. Soon, the captor reveals himself as Two-Time, a two-headed robot with the ability to alter gravitational and magnetic fields at will. Lion-O summons the other Thundercats, who quickly head towards Dome Down. On their way, the trio spots Mumm-Ra at the churning rocks, but continue to Dome Down regardless. By the time they arrive, Lion-O has already defeated Two-Time and freed the Thunderian refugees. As Cheetara, Lynxo, and Bengali escort the refugees back to New Cat's lair, Lion-O, Panthro, and the Thunderkittens head to Churning Canyon to pursue Mumm-Ra. Meanwhile, Mumm-Ra, irate that his plan to destroy the Thundercats has failed again, tries once again to trick Yagara by disguising himself as Yaga. He convinces Yagara that the Thundercats are imposters, prompting her to tamper with the Mighty Gyroscope's controls in an attempt to destroy the false Thundercats in their lair. The Thundercats arrive in the Great Beneath just in time to stop Yagara. Using the Sword of Omens, Lion-O and Panthro reveal Mumm-Ra's true form to her. With his deception exposed, Mumm-Ra flees, but not before revealing that he still possesses the gyroscope's regulator. Without the regulator, the device will eventually fail, leading to the destruction of New Thundera. Inside the Great Beneath, the Thundercats are struggling to stabilize the Mighty Gyroscope. Panthro and Bengali do their best to fix the massive machine, but lack the necessary knowledge about its mechanics. Bengali attempts to fashion a replacement for the regulator, but it fails, causing the gyroscope to swivel wildly. The erratic motion of the gyroscope triggers a massive tremor and gravitational disturbance at the construction site of the new cat's lair. This chaos results in Snarf getting pinned under a giant boulder. Alerted to Snarf's situation by the Sword of Omens, Lion-O rushes to the rescue. He is joined by Cheetara, Lynxo, and Tor, and together they're able to free Snarf. Meanwhile, inside the new Black Pyramid, Mumm-Ra is confident that with the gyroscope's regulator in his possession, it is only a matter of time before the gyroscope falls entirely, destroying New Thundera and the Thundercats along with it.
He then turns his attention to Tygra and Pumyra, the only Thundercats left on Third Earth. He devises a scheme involving the mutants to destroy them and sends Mammoth to carry out the plan. Flying through space, Mammoth disguises himself as Mumm-Ra and intercepts the circus train, which holds the imprisoned mutants. He casts Captain Bragg and Cronin out of the ship before piloting it to Castle Plundarr. Once they reach Third Earth, Mammoth frees the mutants, and a hologram of Mumm-Ra instructs them on what to do. Eager to be free and back home, the mutants comply. Piloting their vehicles, the mutants head to Hook Mountain to eliminate Snowman. As Snowman comes under fire from the mutants, Snow Meow fetches Pumyra and Tygra. Together, they succeed in defeating the mutants and imprisoning them in the circus train. During this time, the real Mongor rescues Captain Bragg and brings him safely to Third Earth. Back on New Thundera, Bengali and Panthro report to the other Thundercats that they have managed to gain temporary control over the gyroscope using a replacement regulator.
Stabilized.
But not for long.
However, they warn that it won't last long, that they must find the real regulator before it's too late. The episode ends with Mumm-Ra destroying the regulator by throwing it into the magical bubbling waters of his cauldron. Unable to continue construction of the new cat's lair due to the erratic earthquakes and gravitational fluctuations, the Thundercats are faced with a difficult decision. With Mumm-Ra having destroyed the Mighty Gyroscope's regulator, there seems to be no permanent solution to stabilize the device. Linkso even suggests abandoning New Thundera altogether. However, Tor insists that they not give up, emphasizing that many Thunderan refugees, like himself, wish to return to their home planet. Meanwhile, Mumm-Ra accelerates his evil scheme by heading directly to the Great Beneath, and severely damaging the gyroscope with energy bolts. This causes violent earthquakes and chaos across New Thundera. Despite her efforts, Yagara is unable to stop Mumm-Ra. The Thundercats rush to Churning Canyon, the entrance to the Great Beneath, but find it inaccessible due to Mumm-Ra's magical force field. After seeking Yaga's advice, Lion-O uses the Sword of Omens to penetrate the force field and enter the Great Beneath. There, he confronts Mumm-Ra in a fierce battle, narrowly avoiding a deadly fall into the canyon thanks to his quick reflexes and the claw shield. Lion-O then summons his friends using the Sword of Omens, and the cat signal creates an opening in the force field, allowing the Thundercats' vehicles to fly in. With reinforcements from his friends, Lion-O is able to defeat Mumm-Ra. Realizing he is outnumbered, Mumm-Ra flees, but not before cutting the cord that holds the Mighty Gyroscope. The enormous device falls into the canyon below, disappearing into the dark abyss. All seems lost until Lion-O uses the power of the Eye of Thundera to transform the Sword of Omens into a makeshift gyroscope. Panthro and Bengali then construct a new gyroscope to replace the old one, and Lion-O uses the sword to activate it. When violent geological disturbances threaten to rip apart New Thundera, Panthro and Lion-O decide to consult the Book of Omens for a solution. Using the Key of Thundera to unlock the book, they learn from the Guardian of the Book of Omens that to stop the planet's imminent self-destruction, they must present certain artifacts at specified locations within a fixed period.
You must use its code to save this planet.
The final step is to present the Key of Thundera to the Guardian himself. If successful, the hostile areas on the New Thundera will transform into peaceful and productive regions. If they fail, they will be frozen in time while the planet self-destructs. That's metal as hell. After making preparations and informing the other Thundercats, Lion-O and Panthro leave the chamber. Unbeknownst to them, Mumm-Ra, who's been spying on them in the form of a scarab, changes back into his true form. He steals the Key of Thundera and the Book of Omens, and he flies off to his pyramid. The Thundercats head out to the assigned locations, carrying their respective artifacts. Cheetara and Linkso take the Thunderstrike to the Caverns of Cold with the tile from the fountain. Snarf, with the Gemlight, accompanies Panthro and the Feliner to the Mountains of the Moon. Bengali and Snarfer pilot the Hovercat to the Baleful Swamp with the Golden Ore, while the Thunderkittens head to the Iron Glades in the Whisker, carrying the ancient Thundercat flag. When Lion-O goes to present the Key of Thundera to the Guardian, he discovers both the key and the Book of Omens are missing. Suspecting Mumm-Ra, he rushes to the Black Pyramid. Inside, Mumm-Ra uses the Key of Thundera to enter the book. Despite the ancient spirits of evil forbidding him from doing so, Lion-O arrives just in time and enters the book using the Sword of Omens. Inside the Book of Omens, the Guardian freezes all the Thundercats and tells Lion-O that he must face and defeat Mumm-Ra in unarmed combat to reclaim the Key of Thundera. After an intense battle, Lion-O emerges victorious. However, Mumm-Ra summons the ancient spirits of evil to send their champion Pyron. This mysterious warrior proves to be a tougher adversary, but Lion-O uses the dragons to incinerate Pyron with their fiery breath. That is also metal as hell. Having reclaimed the Key of Thundera, Lion-O presents it to the Guardian at the 24th hour. The Guardian instructs Lion-O to summon the Thundercats to announce his victory. Lion-O does so, and the Black Panther in the Thundercat signal comes to life, unfreezing all the Thundercats. They then present their artifacts, transforming the once hostile locations of New Thundera into peaceful areas, and completely ending the series. Years of fighting across the cosmos from Thundera to Third Earth and back to Thundera again. It's safe to say our feline friends have more than proved themselves as a formidable force against evil. I hope you've enjoyed our ever-so 80s-infused journey through the world of the Thundercats. Let us know down below what series you'd like for us to cover next, and of course, thanks for watching. See you all next time.